Shalom, my name is Rabbi Nachman Simon, and welcome to the Jewish View. We have together with my co-host Marc Gronich of jbiztechvalley.com and Statewide News, and we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Dominick Calsolaro. Did I say it right?
Yes, very
it's
good.
Not a Jewish name like Cohen or something like that, but all right, if you say Cohen, I'd get it even better. In any case, Dominick, hey, welcome to the Jewish View.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, it's good to be here. It's good to have you here, Dominick. I've known you for many years, and I just wanted to have you talk about your district that you have in the Common Council. You're in the right up against the Bethlehem border, and going downtown. So, talk to us about your district.
Yeah, I represent the First Ward in Albany, which currently, before it'll change in 2014, but currently I kind of have the Governor's Mansion, Grand Street and Madison Avenue, of course Lincoln Park, Morton Avenue, part of 2nd Avenue, part of Delaware Avenue, to the bridge over to Normanskill, and then a little bit out 9W. The new redistrict ward is actually going to go to the line in Glenmont and 9W and down the Normanskill Creek and take up more of the south end area. We lose the Mansion District, but we pick up Mount Hope Drive, Ezra Prentice, the upper end of South Pearl Street.
Now, let me ask you, why do they redistrict? I know in the national level, of course, it's every 10 years.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, all governments, municipalities, the same thing. Because the population changes and the one man and one vote.
4 years, you say 2004.
Because we had a break because of the way our election cycle fell. And you had to wait till 2010 census was over, and we just had our elections 2009. We started 2010. So this is the first city election following the census.
So it could be half a decade before you get to the new lines.
It almost is.
Yeah, it almost is, you know.
It's 3 full years.
And then, you would think they would start earlier before the decade, but no, they start at the decade and then they move on. So when you were elected in November of 2001, I mean, you're there, what, 4 terms, or 3 terms?
3, I'm just finishing my 3rd term, yeah.
I mean, this was the first time that you ran for office and you won right out of the box.
Right.
This is a swinging a home run, right? A walk-off home run.
I don't know, it was a home run.
So what made you want to run? Was it an open seat or?
Yes.
Okay.
It was. I started a neighborhood association, second neighborhood association in the late 90s. I also was involved in a federal anti-crime program in the south end of Albany, Operation Reed and Seed. So I got to know a lot of the the different neighborhood associations, the different people. I kind of made up a lot of the First Ward. And my predecessor, Carol Wallace, she was retiring. So it was an open seat, and she had asked me if I was willing to run for the Common Council. She wanted someone that she felt comfortable with to follow her, and that would keep the same ideals that she had. And after some thought and thought of my family, I decided to go for it.
And your family comes out of the restaurant business.
Yes, Calsolaro's restaurant. Yeah.
Where was that located?
244 Washington Avenue, between Henry Johnson Boulevard and Lark Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were there from 1936, and my father actually retired. He sold the business in 1992.
Now so it was a good 10 yees later, or almost 10 years later, before you ran for office. What were you doing during that time? Were you involved in the restaurant, or?
No, we closed and he sold the buildings.
But when it was open,
when it was open, I worked there sometime. I worked there when I was in high school and college, and a little bit afterwards. But then I started working for the state legislature in 1977.
Doing what?
And it was full time. I worked for the Legislative Bill Drafting Commission.
Oh.
And I was there for 33 years. I retired in 2010.
So wow, you retired just recently.
Yes, 3 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. Who was it? There was some, not Linsider. No, there was some people from the Jewish community who worked at Bill Draft. It's a pretty big organization.
Yeah. Horowitz, Avram Horowitz?
No, Avram Horowitz was in the budget department.
Yeah, no, it's a couple hundred people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what was so I'm going to ask you this because I know about the bill drafting in the Capitol and the legislature. Do you, the arcane way of of writing these bills and the language in the bills? Were you involved in that?
No, I wasn't. No, that's the drafters, the dual attorneys that do that. I said most of my time, the last 25 years, was working on the called the legislative index. We did the daily sheets, a weekly index book. We indexed every bill that's introduced by subject, and also
that's
every
boring.
chapter. It's boring, but I actually liked it because I liked reading. You had to read the bills too in order to index them. I really enjoyed.
Well, the other
reading
thing
the
that
bills.
they do with the bill drafting is when you have a proclamation or a joint legislative resolution,
Yeah.
that the proofreaders
Yeah.
and the people who write them, there's a certain way to write them, they go through the bill drafting.
Yes.
Did you do that at all?
That's why I started as a proofreader when I graduated from Siena in '77. That's how I started.
So now that you know that part, you knew that part, when you were in the Common Council, did you look at those bills differently and the way they came up and how to write them? And,
it helped me. It actually helped me, with my proposals and I would help our legal counsel, the way I wanted a bill drafted, for the city. It was very informative. And they also learned how to do research on issues. So it worked out good. I used it a lot.
I think Joan Sinai worked. Do you know Joan Sinai?
No.
Okay, I think she worked for bill drafting.
okay.
She was the one. I'm sorry, I just
That's all right.
free flow of thought. Where are you? And now you've had do you consider yourself a progressive or?
Yeah, like you said, it's a pretty
Okay.
progressive.
Is there a shift? The Common Council is all Democrat.
Right.
Would it be more helpful if there was at least one or two Republicans on the council to make the Democrats band together? I mean,
we have our own, breakups anyway. We're already there's different groups. You can see the factions. It's a lot different now than it was when I first got on the council. There was only a couple of us that were more of the progressive nature, but it's changed some. And I think 4 years ago it fell in 2009 election. I saw 3 different factions, some of myself more progressive, some of them more conservative, and then there was a group in between. It was almost broken down pretty equally.
5, and 5.
Yeah, just about. So it was good. And sometimes that's how it broke. Sometimes some of the people in the middle would vote more with the conservatives, sometimes more with the progressive Democrats. But, part of it, I was a Democrat. I'm glad to say he's a Democrat, but I do think you need discussion, you need open dialogue, and when things are all one-sided, it actually sometimes lends itself to some not good things. People get, we're all the same party, but then you get bad blood, you get, people don't work together. The only way you get in is it has to be a primary. Which I personally like primaries. People get mad at me when I say that because you don't want to really be in a primary, but it forces people to get out there to meet their constituents, to work harder, go door to door and do all that stuff. And I think we'd have more if it was more of a two-party system in the city and in the county. You would have more of that. Even if you didn't have a primary, you still would have a possible legitimate candidate running at you in November, and you would have to go out and do more of that, more of the feet on the ground work.
So in the first district, there is a Republican running.
He's a conservative. I think it's just a conservative line.
Not even Republican.
No, and he ran on a Democratic primary and lost, but he also had the conservative line. So I don't think he's been too active running though since the primary.
So just like Carol Wallace picked you,
right.
You picked your presumptive
well, I didn't really
successor.
I don't know if I picked her.
Dorsey
Players, yes.
Yeah.
I got to meet her, I got to know her. And I was looking for someone that I felt I could trust, again, kind of like Carol did, that could follow me. And, we have our differences. Dorsey's pretty stubborn. She's strong-willed, which is good, which is what I want. And I wanted somebody that doesn't always think the same way I do, but is intelligent, is going to put the time and the effort in. The council, people consider it part-time, but it depends on how much work you want to do. I put a lot of hours in. There's other council members that are doing it. Some council members that barely show up for half the meetings, and they don't do the work. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I've been out myself half the day today. Yesterday was going all day. Monday night we didn't get done at 10:30 at night, and I had 3 meetings Monday during the day before I even got to the council meeting at night. But other people, like I said, they barely even show up for a meeting, and then I wonder why they don't get reelected.
So you're retired,
Yes.
so that's why you can go to all these meetings.
Yeah, but I went to a lot before. I mean, I went to every neighborhood meeting at night. I would use my lunch hours to run down to the IDA sometimes and sit there for an hour, or meet people. Because I worked downtown, so it was easy for me to get to some of these meetings.
I mean this respectfully and nicely, but do you think of yourself as a government wonk?
Government wonk? I don't know. As a government, I mean, my degree is in political science. I like to study governments. I'll admit that, but I don't think enough people get involved with some of the aspects of government, like the Industrial Development Agency Board, that makes the decisions on the tax breaks for development. People don't even know it exists. A water board meets at 8 o'clock on the third Thursday. Not the third Thursday a month, but every 3 Thursdays. So try to figure that out. So it's hard for people to get there and even know what's going on. And so if I could do it, I do these things, and then I send out, do a newsletter, or send out my email listserv.
And you're technically advanced. I mean, you have a website, Calsolaro.net.
Yes, I don't do anything with it other than I send it to my webmaster and ask her to put the things up.
Well,
I'm not technically savvy.
But you do have
Yep.
endorsements on there,
Yep.
people who you prefer, I presume?
Yeah.
I mean, Kathy Sheehan, Daria
Right.
Schanfar, Dorsey.
Right.
I mean, you have a nice little
Yeah.
operation going
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
even
yeah.
though you have a webmaster doing it.
Yeah,
so.
and I started it when I first got on the council. I thought we had to be more transparent. People, I feel everybody should know what we're doing. I put some of my more general letters go up there that I send out. My legislation, everything's up there. My cell phone's been on the Common Council literature since I got a cell phone. I never, instead of my home phone, I know I heard Noelle earlier, and she said she gave out her cell phone number, and I think that's what we need to do. I mean, people should be able to get a hold of you, and they should know what you're doing. I don't want to be an elected official and be in a vacuum. So everything I do, it's out there, it's public, and so far, at least for me, it's worked out very well.
So what has been your passion and what has been your struggles during your tenure in the Common Council?
Well, my passion in the beginning, I ran on 3 things: vacant buildings, which is still a major issue, gun violence, because I was involved with the Read and Seed program.
Still a major issue.
And it's still a major issue, but we've made a lot of progress.
Okay. And the third issue?
The third issue was probably, going back to 2001, I think it's a little bit different now, but I think the neighborhood revitalization, which goes along with some of the vacant building issues, the lack of investment by the city administration in some of our neighborhoods. It was terrible when I saw the neighborhoods go down. And I've been seeing it since the 70s. I went to Cardinal, at the time it was Cardinal McCluskey, now it's Bishop McGinn. We had a group that we tutored at a Lady Help of Christians, which no longer exists. St. Anne's Institute down at St. Anne's, St. John's down on the Pearl Street no longer exists. And so we did like 2 days a week, meeting with elementary school kids, and they're not there any longer. But as we walked from McCluskey down at the lower south end, you could see the changes in the neighborhood even then. Buildings were starting to go vacant. The churches were already starting to close up then. The Roman Catholic churches were closing schools then. And I wonder if that was a portent of what was going to happen to these neighborhoods, that they were already sliding downhill and they were going to go into decay.
Now, you picked 3 issues that you ran on which probably would never get solved, no matter how many hundreds of years you might be in the Common Council.
Right. Well, I don't know if they'll solve as an end date, but I think, like you said, I think with the gun violence issues in Albany, I established a gun violence task force and an implementation team. And
did you know Lenny Morgenbest?
Yes, very good. In fact, Leonard's really the one that pushed me. I really miss Leonard. I'm sorry, it's almost been a year now, I think, since he died, and he was a great help. He was a great researcher. And we actually met, he and I and Dr. Richard Propp and a couple other people, we met. We used to have our own task force kind of thing. We would meet on a Sunday night at Dunkin' Donuts in Albany, and once a month or once every 3 weeks, and we would discuss gun violence and do the research and see what we could do to move things ahead. And that's really what got me going, on top of being, with the Read and Seed program. And we carried a lot of that over into the established gun violence task force, which Leonard was a member of.
I have to also compliment you on having a connection with the Jewish community, because whenever I would send out requests for ads for a dinner journal or some support for the Jewish community, you were sometimes the only one who would send something back and
really?
help support the Jewish community.
Oh.
So I got to thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you, I appreciate it. Well, I grew up on the Scotland Avenue, just so you know, right across from St. Teresa's, a block down on Sycamore Street, but it was a very mixed community. There was a lot of Jewish families, a lot of Catholic families. It was very mixed. We had a couple of African-American families. We had mixed Spanish and African-American. It really was a mixed, middle-class neighborhood. And it's changed now. St. Teresa's is closed, the school is closed, the church is closed, and now we have I think it's the Seventh-day Adventist church now that moved in on Hollywood, Mormons, yeah, right, on Hollywood and Scotland.
Right.
So, but I mean, it was my next door neighbors. I mean, everybody it was all there. It wasn't, so I think that helped me too in my elected life too, having to, growing up with a very variety of people, not being in one area where it was only one type of people, or only just whites or only just Catholics. It wasn't. It was a very diverse neighborhood.
What was your relationship with the mayor, Mayor Jennings?
Well, it was kind of funny. When I first announced I was going to run, he found somebody to run against me. We kind of got off, not on the right foot, but it had to do with
Wait a minute, you're talking about 2001?
One, yeah.
He didn't like you before?
No, because of the neighborhood association, I believe, and also because of my association with the Read and Seed program in Albany.
Why would he be against? Why would he?
Well, some of it was we were critical of some things that were going on. We didn't think enough things were being done in the, like I said, in the lower wards that we ignored. I was pretty vocal about the neighborhoods being ignored and no investment from the city based on when Mayor Jennings first ran. He came twice to our area and he talked about neighborhoods and that we had to strengthen our neighborhoods. And as I'm growing, I live off 2nd Avenue, as I'm watching my neighborhood decay more and more and not seeing any investment in it, I became very vocal on those issues. And also there's always seems to be this symbiotic relationship between neighborhood associations and elected officials anyway. Neighborhood association, when I'm president, we want to get this done, we want that, we ask for a lot of stuff. And then you're elected official, you see, well, the budget doesn't we can't do everything that needs to get done. There's only so much money, there's only, so many people that we have. So you kind of get into this
So from the very
conflict.
start, the mayor wanted someone else in there, not you.
Yeah.
And then you won.
And I won, yeah.
And what happened for the next 12 years?
Well, the second time I ran, we kind of had a gentleman's agreement. I didn't work against his election, and there wasn't really anybody really a legitimate candidate running. I think Archie Goodby was running, and he wasn't, he didn't have anything to put a real campaign together and stuff. So he was going to leave me alone if I didn't left him alone.
But aside from every 4 years, the intervening 12 years, did you sit down with him in his office? Did you meet with him?
I remember them a few times. The gun violence issue was one of the things I probably met with him the most. Because I actually had a resolution passed in my first year to do a gun violence task force, the way it was written, it was up to the mayor to implement. He never implemented it. So I did a second one, which was an ordinance that was much stronger. I gave the council the right to appoint members, I gave the mayor to appoint members, but I gave the mayor the power to appoint the chairman. And we met a few times on that. We had to get something done. At that time, there was probably sometimes between 8 and 11 to 12 homicides a year in Albany by guns. Mm-hmm. Now, if we have 1 or 2, we went one period, 18 months without a gun homicide. Now I think this year, I don't think there's been any guns was a stabbing. I think we've only had 1 or 2, and there seems to be more stabbings. I think the last 3 years there's been maybe 6 or 7 homicides, and probably 80% of them were by stabbings, not by guns. So we've made major inroads. But it was hard to get him on board. I worked with different chiefs of police, and they were all against it. They viewed the gun violence task force as infringing on the police department, that we were going to try to tell the police department how to run the police department, and that's not what it was for. But everybody, they work in the silos, and you get very defensive, and people want to protect the turf, and even though it was different chiefs, they all kind of felt the same way.
Coming out of the state legislature, you certainly understand
yes,
that
I understand
more
that,
than anything.
Right, so we was trying to come to a compromise, and I think actually work with the mayor and the way the second bill was done for the gun violence task force, it worked out so much better than the original one would have. It worked out really well. It was in effect when Katina Thomas got killed, and it gave people an outlet because the task force was still meeting.
Did you ever want to run for mayor?
I did a few years ago, yeah. I seriously thought about running for mayor.
And why didn't
you? Well, one of the things was trying to raise the money would have been one thing. But actually, one of the things that really struck me was I met with Assemblyman at the time, Assemblyman Jack McEnany, and I was talking to him about running, and he had run for mayor. And he said to me, Dominic, being an administrator is different than being a legislator, which I understand, but he put it in good terms. He said, and I'm paraphrasing kind of, and he said, would you be able to fire someone? If someone comes to you, you know that, he's supporting his family, he doesn't have much money, the wife is sick, and they're not doing the job. And they're not making a lot of money. He didn't say a garbage man, but he'll say a garbage man, just an example. Will you be able to come, knowing this guy needs his job, will you be able to fire him because he's not doing the job? He said, these are the decisions you have to make.
And your answer was?
And my answer was, I said, we'd find it very hard for me to tell that person, that you're fired, knowing that he's got 3 kids home and needed the job. So he got me thinking that way. These are the decisions, the tough decisions that have to be made.
The real answer to that is there's a finesse to it where you don't have to fire him. You can either have him fail upwards, or you can call up someone in the private sector and pawn him off on them and let them deal with it.
Yeah, but it wasn't so much that case. It was just these are the decisions
but that's
you
the
have
way,
to make.
But it's not like either or.
Oh, right.
There's
no,
a middle
I know.
ground that I just described that you could do also.
And I think, but it's hard for me to say no to people. Like you said, I donate to things, and I always done that. And I think if I was in a position where someone came to me as mayor or something, or a group, I would try to find ways to try to do things that maybe it's not always the best thing as an administrator.
Just going back to the gun violence, I'm very interested. How did you affect that there should be less homicides with guns?
Well, the task force came up with like 16 or 17 proposals. One of them was, the main one was to implement Project Ceasefire based on the Chicago model. And that's what we did, and we ended up calling it SNUG, Senator Malcolm Smith put a group together and he called it SNUG, and
Which
we
is
were one of
guns
the
backwards.
sites. Yeah, it's guns spelled backwards. And we modeled it on Project Ceasefire out of Chicago. And that was one of the main things. And we bring in, the way it kind of works, you get people off the street that have, ex-felons and things that actually live this life, that people in the community that are also having the problems will respect them, they'll talk to them, and they do outreach, they do violence interruption. We also have follow-up, we have case management with these people afterwards. And a lot of what they've done is they really stopped the retaliation. What was happening was you'd have a shooting in the South End. The next night, you can guarantee you there was a shooting in Arbor Hill or West Hill. And then 2 days later, there'd be another one in the South End. Right. And they were connected. And we weren't able to kind of stop that from happening because we weren't thinking, well, we have to stop the retaliation. We have to stop what's happening next. And that's what these guys and girls that work in this program, that's what they do. They have the ability. We have a program with Albany Med. They have Albany Med IDs. They're allowed to go in Albany Med after a shooting or a stabbing to talk to the victim, to talk to the families. Because sometimes they won't tell the police things, the victims, but they might tell these guys things. And they don't interact. They can't tell the police what they know. The police give them information, but they can't give information back. That's part of the respect of the program and why it's effective. And then they might hear, well, you know what? It's really this group of people fighting that group, which kind of was going on. We had spate from the middle of August to the middle of September in Albany with a lot of shootings. Just in my own neighborhood, 4 people were shot, and in a 5-day span there were 3 shooting incidents, and 4 people were hit by gunshots right around the primary week.
So when you have this happening in your neighborhood, your county legislator is Lucille McKnight.
Right.
Does she also work with you on this? Do the two of you get together, and is that more power?
I don't know if it's more power, but I think when we're out there together and people see us out there, maybe at a post-shooting event, as SNUG does, they try to do an event after shootings to get the community out, and we're there together.
Has Lucy been effective?
Lucy's been effective. Yeah, she has a lot of respect, and she does what she fights for her community, which is really what they elect us to do, and we're there. I fight for my community, but because I came from the South End residency program, a little bit broader, I think, than some people, and I kind of work around almost the whole city.
So, what part of the South End are you?
Well, I have Lower
No,
Second
are you,
Avenue.
are you from originally?
Oh, no, I'm originally from Scotland Avenue. I moved off Second Avenue in 1987. My wife and I bought
Oh.
a house over there.
Okay.
So I've been there since 87.
With
So,
you and your wife?
yeah,
And you have children?
I have 2 children. Yeah. I have a son who's 23. He's a network engineer for Fidelity Investments. He's down in Texas. Actually, he's visiting this week, which is nice. I haven't seen him in quite a long time. And my daughter just graduated from Boston University in May, and she works for the Boston Globe. She was a journalism major.
So she's a
So-
journalist?
Yes, but it's kind of iffy right now because nobody's hiring full time. She's been there 3 years, actually. She started as an intern, and they kept her on. So she does, she writes articles, she works in the office, she does a lot of different things.
So what's next for you on the horizon?
For me, I don't know. Well,
You just don't go way into the sunset?
No, I'm sure I'll be very involved with still what's going on. I like to, but like I said, I retired 3 years ago from the state. I haven't really been retired. I might want to, see what that's like. My wife retired 2-3 years ago, and maybe we'll do some things together. But I'm sure I'm going to stay involved.
Do you get 2 pensions, one from the state?
No. The way it worked was my time in the city was added into my time with the state. Not the time, but the salary.
Yeah.
And then when I retired, that ended my years of service in the retirement system. I just collected my retirement.
While you were in the Common Council?
Yeah.
So then, but you still have these intervening years between the time in the Common Council. So how does that get added onto your pension?
Well, it doesn't add anything to your pension
Yeah.
anymore, but I collect my salary from the city.
Okay.
So, but it doesn't do anything else for your pension.
So
'cause you're
how's
retired.
your health? How was you?
My health's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know.
So what happened that, I see your hands are
Oh, I have not that anybody knows, I have a neuromuscular disease.
a neuromuscular
Yeah,
disease?
it's called Charcot-Marie tooth, which September was actually Charcot-Marie Tooth Awareness Month.
Oh,
It's the most common inherited neuromuscular disease, but it affects maybe 125,000 people in the country.
and you're one of them. Wow.
Yeah, I'm one of them, yeah. It's
How
kinda
long have
cool.
you had?
It's genetic, most of it's genetic. I found out actually between my eighth grade and 9th grade, I broke my foot, and I always had problems. I never could run. Like I couldn't go up and down stairs till I was in 1st grade. And nobody even knew what was wrong. People at the physicians at the time didn't know what it was. Not too many people knew about it. So and then finally I broke my foot, and the orthopedic surgeon at the time that I had to see, Dr. James Doherty, he had just had a case similar, and he could tell by the shape of my feet, the way they were growing, that he thought I had the same disease, and then I had to go for it. You had to get nerve conduction tests and things.
So how does that impact your life? I mean,
Well,
it
I
seems
can't.
like-
It's hard to go door to door. One reason why I didn't run again, other than I found someone I could trust to succeed me, was I can't do the stairs. It's very hard for me to go up and down stairs. So trying to do door to door got very difficult, and I didn't think it was fair for the constituents and the people we represent that I can't go out and do it. Like 12 years ago, I could do it, but I'm gradually getting weaker, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And so that's another reason why I didn't run, and why I didn't run for mayor, because I thought you need to be, not that you can't do it if you has a handicap, you're disabled. There's ways we could have done it, but I would not have felt comfortable not being able to knock on doors, talk to people individually. I could do a block or two a day, but even now when I went out with Dorsey during the primary, if I went back-to-back days, I was laid up for 2 days before I go out again. Not laid up, but
Wiped
my legs
out.
would be too sore, I'd be too tired, and those types of things.
How
So,
old are you?
58,
58.
yeah.
So you got many more years ahead.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Rabbi's going to give you a blessing.
Well, thank
All right,
you.
we'll conclude with a blessing. You should be with health. You say gesund in Yiddish and probably German too. But in any case, you should be with health. And since you've been such a good person to the state and to the county and to the city, meaning just a public servant, should continue on in helping the people the way you've had.
So this is your life, Dominick Calsolaro.
Yes, thank you. You got me to say something people don't know about me.
There you
So,
go.
Thank you.